In the pivotal scene of our first OPD movie, we showed how the relatively minor incompatibility between the Class B airspace definition and an OPD approach was solved in a manner that, while eliminating Class B excursions, resulted in arrivals that were both noisy and inefficient. In this sequel, we will look at a number of alternatives for deconflicting the airspace definition and the OPD procedure. The first solution was obvious: change the Class B airspace boundary. From what we understand, the proposed changes extend beyond just the little tweak necessary for Surfer or Big Sur OPD and actually release a lot of space back to the GA community. This will work great, but the downside of this is that changing the Class B space might take a significant amount of time. The second solution is to do what was done before NextGen. While the Big Sur procedure was contained within the Class B airspace, it was just barely so, and since airplanes normally deviate from the ideal flight path, they routinely clip the boundary corner back then too. In that case, however, air traffic control simply notified the pilots that they will be briefly exiting Class B airspace, and that was all that was required. The third solution is to deviate from OPD's ideal 2.8-degree slope by just a little bit. Remember that while we're all concentrating on the last 10,000 feet of altitude, the OPD descent starts all the way back at cruise altitude. The main value proposition in OPD is that the computers calculate the exact point where the engines should go to flight idle power all the way back at cruise altitude in order to minimize the application of thrust or drag afterwards. If the descent profile is meant to clear the Class B boundary corner just like Big Sur did, for all practical purposes, the descent will remain just as optimal. The takeaway from this is simple. The FAA is committed to fixing the level flight issue. It is in nobody's interest that it will continue to occur. There are many options available to the FAA for fixing the problem. Therefore, the concerns raised about the modified Surfer continuing to be low and noisy are without basis. The concerns is understandable, but there is simply no reason to think that the restored route will use anything but idle power flight. Any of these options is okay by us, as long as air traffic control is not required to take the planes off of an automatically flown idle power descent with directives such as accept maintain. Quiet Skies NorCal has always maintained that with the restoration of the ground track, we must also solve the level flight problems and restore quiet descents. It is only natural, therefore, that the reverse also hold true. With the restoration of quiet flight, the ground track has to shift back as well.